Greetings, and salutations, beautiful people in the beautiful world. It is me, he is I am him, Zach Latimer, Z Lat, and welcome back to another segment of Right and Exact. Shouts out to a new nation, and a shout out to you. You could be doing anything, but you are here with me on this overcast of a day. Screen is a little dark, but we gonna make it work. Huh? All right. We're just vibing today off of Enlightenment and Transformation, where Chief was just breaking down culture. And culture coming from the Latin word colere, which just means to cultivate. And how are you cultivating your mind? What seeds are being planted in your mind? And Chief has said this once, he said it 1,000 times. If you do not pick a culture, one will be assigned to you. Okay, and it may not be one that leaves you in a favorable and might be sometimes even uncompromising situations. You might even look around and start to look for the culprit of the situations that you find yourself in, and you may not be able to find it because this is psychology at its finest. And you got to understand, if you're dealing with somebody with an undergraduate degree, okay, they may taint your bread. They may do something to it, but eventually you might look in your bread and say, hold up, somebody did something to this. So then if you're dealing with somebody with a master's degree, they may do something to the dough, right? And you might be consuming the dough, eating it in your bread, and then you might go back to it. But if somebody has a doctorate in it, they'll taint the seed. They'll get to the seed first, so therefore you start running around chasing your own tail, thinking that must be you. It must be something wrong with the way you're doing it, or other people are doing it around you. But you're not looking at the seed itself, saying that this seed is genetically modified. The seed doesn't go along with what really resonates and speaks to my higher ideas, my higher self, and my higher purpose. I was in Baltimore a few months back. And while I was in Baltimore, I had a chance to go to, I stayed at the harbor and I went to a show, the aquarium that was across the street. And I went to the show to watch these dolphins. And watching the dolphins, they're flipping, they're doing all these different things in the water, putting on a show for the crowd. Well, as it ended, I got a chance to speak with one of the trainers that trained the dolphins. And I'm just asking them, this is not the really real environment. What do you have to say with people who would have something to say about that? And her response was, oh yeah, they love to do it. They love to put on a show. And I'm thinking in my head, do they love to do it, or are they just doing it because this is the controlled environment that gives them a reward of food? So they know if I do this and I get this in exchange, and this is in controlled environment, so I can't really do things for myself. I'm susceptible to whatever the person who is in charge is doing. Then I have to really conform my lifestyle around what they're doing in order for me to eat. Okay, which starts to become a very dangerous thing. Or even if you look at orcas, right? And you look at orcas and they're in the water and they're majestic and they're big and they're just beautiful sight to see. And when they're doing the things that are required of them, you call them orcas. But then when they start to go back to their natural habitat, or they start to go back to their natural way of living and say, hold up, this seed that's been implanted in me is not right. Well, now all of a sudden you give them a different name. You call them a killer whale. You start to say, nah, this is a different narrative to fit whatever I need them to be at that particular time to justify what I'm about to do to this animal. So you start to give some labeling to in there as well. But they didn't have a choice. They didn't pick it. This is what was assigned to them. And if they're not acting in the behavior that they want them to act in, well, then that's not normal behavior. But then you have to ask yourself, well, what exactly is normal behavior? What exactly is this word normal, and then who benefits, as Amos Wilson said, who benefits from one being normal? Who socially and economically? Somebody is going to benefit from this. And if you're not careful, you can invest and put your time, energy, and effort into somebody else who is capitalizing off of you living in their controlled environment and capitalizing off of you being normal. All right. So if you look at this in the sense of just in real life, you have people who live in ghettos or projects. And Jay-Z had a line in his one of his songs that said, "You want to know why they call a project? Because it's a project or an experiment." an experiment where people are controlling resources, you're controlling funds, you're controlling electricity, you're controlling the water flow, you're controlling the food. Once you start controlling all these aspects, and the people in this aspect start to do act on a reward system. So they start to sell a deaf, and even in music, what you start to, that seed that you start implanting in your mind, you start to feed off of it and say, okay, this is what I can do to get out of this situation or to get a reward. But all the meanwhile, if you start looking at yourself and saying, oh yeah, well, you're doing this to yourself, you have to start looking at the person who's controlling the environment. No different than if you're looking at the person who's doing the labeling. Just like you change an orca to a killer whale to fit the narrative. No different than when you start to see young melanin dominant men walking around and being labeled as boys their entire life until they come into a courtroom. Now all of a sudden you change the narrative, they're no longer boys, they're men. And then you start to play and put on other people's fears of saying, okay, he had a hood on, or they was walking like this, and then now you become a man. To fit whatever narrative of a culture that you bought into, now you're going to fit whatever narrative they want you to fit into. Brother Charles said this once before. He said, being without a culture is like being like a banana with no peel. You're susceptible to whatever the weather and the elements are going on around you. So you now have to see, have you picked a culture? Okay? Have you made a conscious decision to make a choice? Are you being susceptible to whatever is going on around you? Are you in a controlled environment where the seeds that have been implanted in your mind that you're going after has nothing to do with your higher self, your higher ideas, and your higher drive and your higher purpose? This is now time for you to take a look and see what really is the things that you're going after. Who really is controlling your resources, and have you really sat down and made a conscious decision to make a choice, a decision? Decision meaning to cut from. Because what they say is you have to, in order to elevate, you have to separate. What are you separating from? You're separating from a culture that is dictating to you what you can and cannot do. And then when you actually start doing it, you might take a look at it and say, man, I am absolutely miserable. That's because there was a seed that was genetically modified that was planted in your mind that shaped your consciousness, which shaped your perceptual reality. So now you have to go get your mind back. You have to go get your culture back in order to cultivate. All right? So I will that you got something out of this. I will that you have a wonderful day. I'm on Instagram, Zach Latimer, ZACHLATIMER. You can always go to Enlightenment and Transformation to get deeper into this. Like, subscribe, share this video. And until next time, I'm out. What culture have you picked for yourself? Huh? One love. Peace.